If you were investigating this case, at what point would you say, wait a minute, Tracy didn't do this, we need to look at somebody else?
As an investigator, I would have been looking at me too. But the fact is I'm not going to kill my boyfriend.
I want to see my daughter walk out of that prison a free woman.
Do you have any doubts that Tracy Fortson killed her ex?
The victim in this case was a drug informant and helped put away a drug dealer. What do you think about that?
I'm just going to make a video today in case something was to happen to me.
Do you think Tracy could have been physically capable of doing this all by herself?
I think she should have gotten the death penalty.
Wow.
It was a cruel way of how she killed him.
I'm Chris Anderson, a retired Birmingham homicide investigator. And I know cops don't always get it right.
I'm Fatima Silva. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've seen innocent people thrown in prison.
We've teamed up to help families who are convinced their loved ones were wrongfully convicted of murder. When it's over, we either help free an innocent prisoner
or help the family face the difficult truth.
June 4th, 2000, Oglethorpe County, Georgia. 38-year-old Doug Benton, a welder and amateur bodybuilder, goes missing. June 19th, Doug's body is found on a farm 22 miles from home, wrapped in shower curtains, placed in a horse trough, and encased in 800 pounds of cement. 2 days later, police arrest Doug's girlfriend, Tracy Lee Fortson. Cops are very familiar with her. She's one of their own. Tracy was the first female deputy sheriff in the county's history.
2001, Tracy stands trial.
You've been charged with murder.
Prosecutors argue Doug wanted to break up and Tracy was not having it. They say that while he napped, Tracy shot him in the head with a .22 rifle, stabbed him 10 times, and then disposed of his body. The jury accepts the state's account and convicts. Tracy Fortson is now fighting for her freedom while serving a life sentence.
Sharon, for 19 years you've been fighting for your daughter's freedom without any results. Tell me what keeps you going.
I know my daughter's innocent. She was wrongly convicted, and I know she would not do that. That's what keeps me going.
And Joy, what about you? What keeps you fighting?
I love Tracy. I've known Tracy since she was 8 years old. We grew up together. And there's no way that a woman like Tracy with that much love in her heart could have done anything like this.
We know a conviction can be hard on a family.
How do Tracy's daughter and grandkids feel about everything?
Elise had told me several times, she said, I need her. She said, I really need Mom. Excuse me. She said, I really need my mama. It's breaking her heart.
Now, how long were Doug and Tracy together before his murder?
I think it was around 9 months or so.
What kind of guy was he?
I was a little shocked when I saw how big he was and that he rode motorcycles.
I wasn't impressed. I didn't really care for him.
Okay.
He was arrogant, and he gave me a very uneasy feeling.
Did you like him, Sharon?
I wouldn't say that I didn't like him. He wasn't the kind of person that I would trust.
Why? What was it about him?
He was a little on the obsessive side. He wanted Tracy to be with him all the time. He didn't want her to be with friends and family.
So let's go to the murder. When did you hear that Doug was missing?
I did not know anything about that until the sheriff's deputies came to my house and had a warrant for her arrest.
Wait, he was missing for 15 days and Tracy didn't mention it?
No.
Do either one of you find that odd?
No, because Tracy told me that she and Doug had broken up.
Why do you think police zeroed in on Tracy?
Tracy had a sexual harassment lawsuit.
Who did Tracy file a sexual harassment lawsuit against?
The sheriff's department.
So you think this murder charge was in response to her sexual harassment lawsuit?
I think it had a lot to do with it, yes.
And to be clear, at the time that Doug went missing, Tracy had quit the department because of this lawsuit?
Yeah.
To the jury, Tracy was a cold-blooded murderer. Tell us who she really was.
Tracy was an only child, and she loved animals. That was her first pony.
You bought her a pony?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was her first motorcycle.
I remember this motorcycle very well. We would get on those things and we would ride everywhere. I love this picture. Her passion. Tracy always wanted to help somebody.
She has spent almost 20 years in prison, but she's still my daughter. And that will never change. That will never change.
You gave us leads that you believe will help get us to join your fight. First, you say it would have been physically impossible for Tracy to get rid of Doug's body. Tell me about that.
Tracy was 145 pounds. Doug was 250 pounds. And supposedly, she took him out of the house, put him in the back of a truck, put him in a cattle trough, filled it with cement, then took it down into a lower part of the county and took the trough off of the truck and left it there by itself. And there's no way.
There's no way a woman could do that.
Your next lead was that the victim's neighbor could not have heard a gunshot coming from Doug's house the day he went missing.
Well, the girl that testified to that did not live close enough to Doug's house for her to be able to hear that.
Why would this neighbor lie? What does she have to gain?
Well, probably she didn't like Tracy.
Let's move on to your next lead. You guys also say that there were other suspects who the police completely ignored. Who were they?
Doug was an informant. He worked with the sheriff's department, and there was a drug dealer in the area. Doug was responsible for him being arrested. He made the comment that whenever he got out of prison, he would kill Doug.
What's his name? Maybe we can look him up ourselves.
His name was Bear.
And is he in prison?
He's passed
deceased.
away.
Do you know if police ever talked to this guy?
I don't think they investigated him at all.
That, in my opinion, would be a huge misstep.
Yes.
When you're investigating cases like this, you should talk to everyone that's involved.
Oh, very much so.
Your next lead is that a note was found in Doug's truck, and in it he says he needed to go away for a while. The prosecution claimed that Tracy forged that letter, but you said that's not true.
Doug's truck was found at a friend of his house. And I guess it was made to look like Tracy had put it there to make it look like Doug was still alive. It's not Tracy's handwriting.
Your last lead is that because this is a small town, Tracy's trial was completely biased. Tell me about that.
Well, it was all over the news. It was all in the newspapers, and everybody just, you know, yeah, she's guilty, you know.
Was there any indication that the jury had already made up their minds at the beginning of that trial?
It didn't take them very long to make their decision. 2 to 3 hours, maybe.
Really?
We'll look into that.
I've got to ask, do you ever imagine Tracy being out of prison?
All the time. I want to see my daughter walk out of that prison a free woman. I want to see her walk out through those gates and be able to go home to be with me and her daughter.
I'm praying that you can prove that Tracy's innocent. She's really a wonderful person.
I love her so much. And I think about her all the time. And I pray all the time. I just ask God to just fix our broken family. Our family is broken without Tracy.
Terry, you were selected as an alternate juror in this case. You sat through the whole 3-day trial.
Now, did you know anything about this case before you were selected?
No.
You didn't? Tracy Fortson's family says that there's no way she could have gotten a fair trial. It was too high-profile a case and too small a town. What do you think about that?
I never felt that. You know, even in the breaks, there wasn't chitter-chatter and talking and all that kind of stuff. I never felt like that. I felt it was fair.
Did you know anyone involved in the case? Witnesses, lawyers?
I mean, it was a small town.
Coming up, what does she have to gain? What's her motive behind all of it?
My partner tells me 22 caliber rifle isn't that loud.
I'm sorry, but I did hear it.
It's nowhere in the police reports. Why not?
Tracy Fortson is in prison, convicted of brutally murdering her boyfriend, Doug Benton. Tracy's family believes she didn't get a fair trial. I'm talking to one of the jurors to see if she agrees.
Did you know anyone involved in the case? Witnesses, lawyers?
I mean, it was a small town, you know, so that we knew who people were. I knew who the district attorney was, but I didn't know him personally.
Let's talk about the actual trial. In your opinion, did both sides present a good case?
The prosecuting attorney, yes, absolutely. They had all their ducks in a row. The defense didn't do a whole lot. He didn't call any witnesses and didn't ask a whole lot of questions.
If you were allowed to vote, how would you have voted?
Guilty.
Since the defense didn't call any witnesses, I'm going to throw out a couple of arguments that they might have made, and you tell me whether or not it would have influenced your decision. So the first one is that the victim in this case was a drug informant, and his testimony helped put away a drug dealer who threatened him. If you knew that, would that have made a difference?
No, not at all.
How about the fact that Tracy had filed a sexual harassment claim against the sheriff's department?
Not to me. Mm-mm.
How about if you found out that the letter that was left in Doug's car couldn't have been written by Tracy?
Maybe I would think about it a little bit more, but I don't think so. Yeah, I was convinced completely.
How long did the jury deliberate?
It was very short.
Did you think that the deliberation was thorough and fair?
Yes.
But you just admitted it was fairly short.
I mean, it was short, but from what I remember, all the jurors were pretty much on the same page.
So, in your gut, Terry, what do you think happened that day?
I think she was just really mad, just over the fact that he broke up with her. You know, she was a scorned woman, and for someone to shoot someone in the top of the head while they're taking a nap, it's pretty cold.
That stayed with you?
That stayed with me.
Zach, I'm looking into a murder case where the convict's family says that it would have been physically impossible for her to get rid of this body. But before I get into that, I know you've looked over all the crime scene photos, so let's start off with the victim's house. Were there any signs of forced entry?
No forced entry to any of the windows, and I mean, you can see in this one that there's nothing to the door.
We're pretty sure that the murder was committed inside of the victim's home, am I correct?
Yeah, and you can see that on the couch where he was laying, blood had actually saturated into the couch.
And we know what weapon was used to commit the crime.
There were actually two different weapons. The victim sustained a gunshot wound to the head, as well as he sustained 10 independent stab wounds, so a sharp instrument of some sort.
So 10 stab wounds plus being shot?
Yes.
Somebody definitely wanted him dead?
Yeah.
Okay, so no one questions that Tracy Fortson may have been capable of killing her boyfriend. But the family's problem is how the body was disposed of. Walk me through the prosecution's theory of how this happened.
So after he sustained the gunshot wound and the stab wounds, he was placed into a sheet and a shower curtain and wrapped up in that. He was then drug out of the house and into the bed of her pickup truck, which had a steel trough in it. So from there, she mixed the cement. She had 10 80-pound bags that she encased him in cement with.
How tall and how much did Tracy weigh at the time of the murder?
So she was 5'6", and she weighed 145 pounds.
And how about the victim?
He was 5'11" and weighed 250.
Zach, I have my theories, but do you think Tracy could have been physically capable of doing this all by herself?
Well, let's put it to the test. We have a volunteer who is about the same size and age as Tracy was at the time of the murder. So we have 250 pounds of sandbags wrapped in a sheet and shower curtain that was about the same weight as the victim. We're gonna see if our volunteer is able to drag all of this weight onto the back of her truck. She'll then mix the cement and encase the sandbags into the trough. She'll then drive the truck out to an open field where she'll wrap rope around a tree in the trough and pull the trough off the truck.
So, based on this test and everything you've seen in this case, do you think realistically Tracy Fortson could have done this alone?
Absolutely.
Coming up, one of Doug's neighbors reported that she heard a gunshot. Why do you think she said that?
Lisa, were you pressured at all by police?
The prosecution in Tracy Lee Fortson's murder trial argued that a note found on victim Doug Benton's truck after he went missing was a fake, that Tracy wrote it to make it look like he was still alive. Her family says there's no way that Tracy wrote that note, so I'm bringing it to a handwriting expert to see what he thinks. Does anything stand out to you about this note that was left in the truck?
It could be writing by someone who doesn't write well.
The letter on the bottom of the screen was written by Doug.
What did you notice about Doug's writing?
Not a high quality of writing, but very consistent in its letter formations.
So do you think that Doug wrote the note left on the truck?
No.
Are you basing this on the style of the writing, or are you basing this on the way that the letters are formed?
Both.
Is there any specific example that you can point to?
Sure, like the letter R. In all the writings I looked at for Doug, there were no lowercase r's. He uses an uppercase R in all of his writing.
And this note has lowercase r's.
Yes.
Now, I know that you have a sample of Tracy's handwriting.
Yes.
Tell me about her handwriting. What stands out to you about hers?
Very nicely developed, average to above average writing, good consistency in the letter formations.
What are some similarities that you noticed between Tracy's handwriting and the letter that was left on the truck?
One of the ones that stand out is the letter D and don't. They're similar to where the sheet makes Ds.
So what are some differences you saw?
The K letter forms. The C's are different. The Y's. And so I saw consistent letter form differences that indicate she's not the writer of this.
So you're saying that even for a short note like that, that somebody can't consciously decide to change the way they write each letter?
I wouldn't say it's impossible, but their attention to detail will falter at a point and their own habits will come back in.
So based on your expertise, what are the chances that either Doug or Tracy wrote that letter that was left on the truck?
I actually think it may have been another person who wrote this letter.
Ben, I'm looking into a murder case that you actually investigated while you were with the GBI. Do you remember the case well?
Yes, I do.
What was it that made Tracy Fortson the lead suspect in this case?
Well, I felt like she was the closest person to him, and several witnesses told us that it was a hostile relationship, that they fought regular.
So, Ben, we have a woman here that has no real history of any violence. What does she have to gain? What's her motive behind all of it?
I think he told her it was over.
Well, the family believes that Doug Benton may have been a police informant and says that the guy with the nickname of Bear was the person that he informed on. And he's deceased now, but did you guys ever talk to him?
His name wasn't mentioned in the case, If we had the information, we always wanted to turn over every stone and look under every leaf.
So I found this home video that Doug made for his children. To Tracy's family, they think that that's proof
that he thought his life was in danger.
I'm just gonna make a video today, and the reason I'm doing it is for my little boy Jacob. I just wanted to give him something that he'll be able to remember me by in case something was to happen to me. Never can tell.
Does it say anything to you?
I think he had some fear for him to want to leave that message.
Fear of the guy he put away?
No. Things must have been pretty volatile with Tracy, and that he was afraid something might happen to him.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any doubts that Tracy Fortson killed her ex?
No.
None at all?
None. Tracy was there. Tracy knows.
There's nothing linking her to this crime, really. We have a woman who is a deputy who has no history of violence.
Does that give me some pause? Yes, but this case looks like a rage killing. He was stabbed 10 times and shot once in the head. That reeks of a spousal or someone that's close and connected to the victim in this case.
But they had already broken up. I mean, we just don't have a motive. Why kill him?
Well, I talked to Tracy tomorrow. She's got to tell me what type of relationship she and Doug had. And I want to know exactly what happened the last time she saw him.
So tomorrow, I get to talk to one of the prosecution's key witnesses, the neighbor, who says that she heard a gunshot the day that Doug supposedly goes missing. This is a big deal.
She was key in this case, so I'm glad you get an opportunity to talk with her.
Right.
I have to be honest in this case. I am leaning one way. Maybe something will happen in this phone call that'll change my mind, so I'm gonna leave myself open for it.
I'm in the same boat. Because right now, the only thing that links her to the crime is the fact that love can make you do crazy things.
When we have cases like this that involve law enforcement, I don't treat them any different. I still want to build some sort of rapport with the person I'm talking to, but I'm still going to confront them with those facts that just don't make sense. Hey, Tracy.
Yes.
Okay, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Let's talk about the relationship between you and your mom. Tell me about growing up with your mother.
Well, me and my mom had a pretty close relationship.
I got the chance to sit down with her and talk with her, and I love your mom. She's a great woman. She's fighting for you really hard.
I've been incarcerated for 19 years now, and my mom has always been one to come and visit me. My daughter comes to visit me. A lot of people don't have that, but I'm very blessed. I have that support.
Tell me, what made you want to go into law enforcement?
My love for law enforcement started fairly young. That's what I wanted to become. I wanted to be a police officer.
Let's talk about Doug. How was the relationship?
Our relationship was great.
Your mom and Joy said that they didn't like him. Is that true?
They probably didn't. He had a very big ego. I mean, he was obsessed with being big.
Joy said that he was controlling. Is that true?
He had his issues. I mean, you know, he was jealous.
Was your relationship with Doug, was it a volatile relationship?
Coming up.
There is one thing that you neglected to mention to us. Something we had to find out on our own.
I'm talking to Tracy Fortson, who's serving a life sentence for killing her boyfriend, Doug Benton. Was your relationship with Doug, was it a volatile relationship?
No. Doug was too big for me to have a volatile. I might be a little crazy sometimes, but I'm not stupid. Doug and I had issues as far as arguments just like anybody else, but as far as physical fights or anything like that, that never happened.
The prosecution's key witness was Doug Benton's neighbor, who says she heard a gunshot coming from his house while Tracy was over there. I managed to track her down, and what she tells me today could be the key to this entire case.
As you know, I'm looking into the murder case of your former neighbor, Doug. What kind of guy was he?
Shy. He was a little shy, but a very nice guy. He was a good person. I'd call him a lovable teddy bear.
What kind of crowd did Doug hang out with?
Basically the same crowd I did. People who just like to have fun.
Did that fun involve drugs?
None that I know of. It was basically drinking and hanging out at the bar and listening to music.
Someone described him as cocky and kind of aggressive. Would you disagree with that?
I'd say it all depended on who the person was. Whatever your aura was is the kind of aura he would put out too.
Did you ever meet his girlfriend, Tracy?
Yes.
What was your impression of her?
She wasn't a very nice person. The way she wouldn't talk to anybody, she was standoffish.
Did you ever get any kind of impression of what their relationship was like?
No. When Doug got with Tracy, he pretty much became secluded. He didn't really talk very much to anybody anymore.
So when did y'all break up and why?
We had an argument on that Saturday night, and then I spent the night there. Doug slept on the couch. Sunday morning, which was the 4th, I left about 6:30 that morning and went home.
Isn't that the date that police said that you killed him?
Right.
Did you talk with Doug that day?
Later on, between 5:30 and 6, that's when I went over to Doug's house.
When you went back over there, what was the conversation like?
It wasn't very much of a conversation because Doug acted like he was still angry at me, and I kept trying to ask him, what was wrong with him, what was the problem, and we talk about this, and he didn't want to talk about it. Finally, I left. I went back home.
After he broke up with you, did you ever try to reach back out to him?
Oh, yeah. I had tried to call him. At that point, I remembered something his mom had told me one time, just Tracy, just give him some space. If he loves you, he'll come back.
I want to take you back to 2000, June 4th. It's a Sunday. Your testimony in this case was key. Tell me what you saw at Doug's house that day.
I was out in my yard and I saw Tracy pull up in the driveway.
What time was it that she was parked outside?
It was probably around 3:30 or somewhere around that time. They just went in the house, and I'm gonna say roughly around 7 or so, I saw Tracy leave.
Between 3:30 and 7, anything unusual?
I heard a gunshot.
This is actually a photo I have of where you were living and then Doug's house right across the street. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes.
So you're saying from your house, you could hear a gunshot go off in Doug's house?
Yes, when I'm standing outside, yes.
Were you outside from 3:30 to 7?
Yes, because that's when I do all my yard work.
Because my partner tells me a .22 caliber rifle isn't that loud, that it's unlikely that you could hear it from your house.
I'm sorry, but I did hear it.
It's nowhere in the police reports. Why not?
I thought he might have just been shooting to get rid of an animal or something.
September of 2000, you read a statement. Here, you mentioned the gunshot. Why?
I don't know.
Lisa, were you pressured at all by police?
Oh, Lord, no.
One of Doug's neighbors reported that she heard a gunshot. Why do you think she said that?
I think she said exactly what they wanted her to say. And there's something else that I wanted to mention you haven't asked me about yet, but Doug had once told me he was an informant. And He also claimed that he was responsible for putting a drug dealer in prison, and it was a drug dealer that he used to work for. That was somebody else that they could have investigated that they didn't. I understand that a lot of times in murder cases that they look at the person closest to that person.
No investigator in their right mind would not look at you as a suspect.
Oh, I know that they would look at me as a suspect. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have looked at me as a suspect.
Okay.
But the fact is that I didn't kill Doug.
If you were investigating this case, at what point would you say, wait a minute, Tracy didn't do this, we need to look at somebody else?
I wouldn't eliminate other people, but I mean, yes, I understand why that people were looking at me. I understand that, yes, as an investigator. I would have been looking at me too.
Okay.
And understand this, Chris, it's very frustrating for me, because, I've been fighting this for 19 years. I see all the things that you see. But it's just a little bit too convenient, if you ask me. I mean, I'm not going to kill my boyfriend. I had no reason to kill my boyfriend.
The prosecution claims that Tracy had to drag Doug's body out of his house, load it into a horse trough, into her truck. How do you not see this happen?
Because I have a feeling that she did it when people were sleeping, or she probably did it when I was gone to work.
So you believe Tracy murdered Doug?
Yes.
You think she's right where she should be?
I think she should have gotten the death penalty.
Wow. Why the death penalty?
Because, to me, it was a cruel way of how she killed him. And because of his sons, they were so young, and they would have never known.
Listen, your mom is torn up about this, and she doesn't have a moment's rest until she gets some closure. Is there anything that you can tell me that can help her sleep a little bit better?
That I love her, but I'm going to continue to fight for my innocence. I'm coming home. One day, I'm coming home.
Sharon, when we spoke earlier this week, I could feel your pain, how you literally ache for your daughter to come home. And Joy, you're more than just a cousin to Tracy. You're her best friend.
So you two were never far from our hearts as we investigated your leads. Now, here are the results of our investigation.
Your first lead is that the jury in this case was biased against Tracy, that this was too big a case and too small a town. I was able to track down an alternate juror. She insists she hadn't heard anything about the case before she was selected. She also says she didn't know anyone personally that was involved in the case. This woman was very earnest, and I have no reason not to believe her. So overall, this lead doesn't help. But you're right. It doesn't sound like there was too much of a deliberation.
No, it wasn't long, and that really bothered me.
Sharon, your next lead was that there were other suspects that went ignored by police. You said that Doug was an informant and was responsible for putting a local drug dealer named Bear in prison. You claimed that Bear vowed to kill him when he was released from prison.
Yes.
I reached out to a GBI agent that said that he would have been happy to interrogate Bear, but his name never came up during the investigation. And so, he wasn't a suspect in this case. I did some checking, and Bear was a real person. Of course, Bear's dead now, and it's impossible to know whether or not he really threatened Doug. This lead, I just don't think it helps you.
I still think it's possible that there was something mentioned, but just left out and ignored.
Why?
My honest opinion was that they wanted Tracy for something.
Let's move on to the next lead.
Joy, you said there's no way that Tracy forged the letter found on Doug's truck the day that he went missing. So I reached out to an accomplished handwriting expert. Here's a copy of the note that was found on Doug's truck. First, I had the expert compare it to a sample of Doug's writing. He said that there was no way Doug wrote that note. Then I showed him a sample of Tracy's writing. The expert doesn't think that Tracy wrote the note either. So overall, this lead works.
That makes me feel really good.
Yeah, More than happy.
I'm very grateful for that information.
Moving on. Joy, you said that it was physically impossible for Tracy to have gotten rid of Doug's body on her own. The prosecution claimed that she dragged his dead body out of the house, threw him onto the back of her pickup, put him in a horse trough, encased him in 800 pounds of cement, drove to a remote farm, tied a rope around the trough and to a tree, drove off, leaving the body there. Now, I will admit, it did sound pretty far-fetched, so we put it to the test. We got a volunteer, a young lady who was 5'6", 145 pounds, just like Tracy was at the time, and just like Tracy, she was in very good shape. Even though it took her a while, she got it done. So the prosecution's theory is very possible. I saw someone do it with my own eyes. So unfortunately, this lead, it doesn't help you.
Well, I'm very disappointed in that, that you believe that, but I still believe in Tracy, and I believe she did not do it.
Believing she did not do it is one thing, but you understand now that it is physically possible that she could have done it.
Well, okay, that's y'all's decision.
Well, it wasn't our decision, though, Sharon. We want to make it clear. We saw it with our own eyes, so it's not something we believe, it's something we have to accept.
Okay.
Right.
So can you accept that it can physically be done?
Okay.
Now, your last lead is that there's no way Doug's neighbor could have heard a gunshot on June 4th, 2000, the day that police believe Doug was killed. Her name is Lisa Watson, and her testimony was very damaging in this case. So I tracked Lisa down. She said she spent the day working in her front yard and that she distinctly remembers Tracy pulling up to the house that afternoon. She also insists that she heard a gunshot while Tracy's truck was still in the driveway. Now, I do have some problems with her story.
I do too.
As you said, their houses were pretty far apart.
In fact, it was about 65 yards.
And I'm told by my partner that a .22 caliber rifle doesn't make a lot of noise. So it's suspect. I do have to say, I don't see a reason for her to lie. But I don't think her memory is reliable. So this is a decent lead.
That makes me feel better.
We talked about a lot of things when we met earlier this week. Your love for Tracy, what a wonderful person she is, your leads. But there is one thing that you neglected to mention to us. Something we had to find out on our own. On the date police believe that Doug was shot, Tracy went on a shopping trip. Here's a receipt for a shower curtain she purchased.
And that's not all she bought that day. So I gave Tracy an opportunity to explain how on earth could she be innocent in light of this. And here's what she had to say.
I purchased the galvanized trough for my horse. I wanted to pour a concrete pad for my dog pen. So I bought concrete. And when I got home and pulled up on my carport, the trough and concrete were gone.
Who did you think took it?
I thought it was somebody that was connected with the sheriff's department.
In order for Tracy to be innocent, we'd have to believe in a vast conspiracy. We'd have to believe that the local police, the GBI, all the witnesses, all of them would risk their careers, their freedom, just to put Tracy in prison. This isn't believable. You are two very wonderful people, and you brought us here to tell you the truth. This is not a difficult case. Tracy killed Doug Benton.
Well, maybe that's y'all's opinion, but it's not mine.
You could walk out of here mad, decide that we're the bad guys, just 2 more people who don't get it. But I'd like you to take a moment to really think about this. Tracy has a daughter and granddaughters. And every day that you go on waging the unwinnable fight, you are making all of those people suffer too.
The longer you go and deny the facts, these are facts in this case. These are not things that people have just made up. These are facts. You take another day off your life. Every day you go on fighting like the way that you are.
That's a hard thing for me to accept. I don't think I could ever be free with my daughter in prison.
I can imagine. I'm a mom. But you have to stop denying what's right there in front of you.
And please, I want to always reiterate every time we have to give this bad news that we are not trying to separate you as a family.
I understand that completely. And it's not going to change. Nothing's going to change the way I feel about it.
Well, I'm not mad at y'all, but I just can't imagine how I can go home and tell Elise what y'all are telling me. It's just something I don't want to have to do. She had her hopes up again that y'all were gonna really help her mama get home.
And we wish that we could. We really do. But there's nothing that can be done here.
I think you really underestimate your strength. I really think you underestimate.
Maybe I do. Sometimes I don't feel very strong.
The truth is hard, but eventually it can set you free. And we hope that it will for you, Sharon.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You'll be in our prayers, Sharon, that's for sure.
That's what keeps me going.